The line wasn't moving, and Karen's sigh could have shattered glass. She tapped her foot like it was a war drum, glaring at the man ahead who dared to exist at her pace. In the cozy hum of brewed awakening, a small-town coffee shop where locals traded gossip over lattes, Karen's impatience was about to ignite a fire nobody saw coming. She didn't know the man she was about to berate had left a piece of himself on a battlefield to save lives. It was a crisp Tuesday morning, the kind where frost clung to car windows and breath hung in the air. Karen, mid-40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored coat and clutching a designer purse, had a reputation. She wasn't just a customer. She was a storm. Baristas knew her by the clip of her heels and the way her complaints could silence a room. Today, her target was Jake, a quiet veteran who'd only been back in town for 6 months. He stood at the counter, ordering his black coffee, his movements deliberate, almost cautious. His cane rested against the counter, unnoticed by Karen, who saw only a man holding up her precious schedule. "Excuse me," Karen snapped, loud enough to turn heads. "Some of us have places to be. Can you move any slower?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm, each word a jab. Jake turned slightly, his face calm but eyes heavy with something unspoken. He nodded politely, stepping aside to grab his coffee. The barista, a young woman named Mia, fumbled with the cup, her cheeks reddening as Karen's glare shifted to her. "Not you too," Karen said, rolling her eyes. "This place is a disaster. Why is everyone so incompetent?" The room stiffened. An older couple at a corner table exchanged glances. A teenager scrolling on his phone looked up, sensing drama. Jake, still composed, picked up his cane and started toward a table, his limp more pronounced under Karen's scrutiny. "Do you even need that thing?" Karen muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Or is it just for attention?" The words landed like a grenade. Mia gasped. The older couple froze, their mugs halfway to their lips. Jake stopped, his grip tightening on the cane. He turned, facing Karen, his expression unreadable but his eyes burning with a quiet intensity. "Ma'am," he said, voice low and steady, "I'm just trying to get my coffee." His restraint only fueled her. Karen stepped closer, her purse swinging like a weapon. "Don't ma'am me. If you can't keep up, stay out of the way. People have lives to live." The room was a pressure cooker now, every onlooker caught between shock and anticipation. Mia, behind the counter, whispered, "Please just stop." But Karen was a freight train. Jake's jaw clenched. He wasn't one for confrontation. 3 years ago, he'd been in a desert half a world away, dragging wounded soldiers to safety under gunfire. The explosion that took his leg left scars deeper than the one on his thigh, but he'd learned to carry the weight. Now, standing in his hometown, he felt the same heat of battle in Karen's words. "I'm doing my best," he said, each word measured. "Maybe you could try a little patience." Karen laughed, sharp and cruel. "Patience? For what? You're holding up the line because you're too lazy to walk properly?" The accusation hit like a slap. The teenager snorted, then caught himself eyes wide. The older couple whispered, "She doesn't know." Mia, trembling, tried to intervene. "Ma'am, he's a veteran. Please." But Karen waved her off, undeterred. "A veteran? Oh please. Everyone's a hero these days." Karen's voice rose, performative now, feeding off the room's tension. "If you're such a big deal, why are you wasting my time?" The air crackled. Jake's calm cracked just a fraction, his hand trembling on the cane. He took a step forward, closing the gap between them. The room held its breath. "Ma'am," he said, voice cutting through her bravado, "I lost my leg pulling 3 men out of a burning Humvee. I'd walk faster if I could." The truth landed like a bomb. Karen's face froze, her mouth half open, words dying in her throat. The older couple gasped. The teenager dropped his phone. Mia's eyes welled up, her hands covering her mouth. The chalkboard menu behind the counter, scrawled with Karen versus Vet, a clash of truth, seemed to loom larger, a silent witness to the moment. Karen's confidence crumbled, but pride kept her rooted. "Well," she stammered, "you could have said something sooner." It was a weak deflection, and everyone knew it. The room's judgment was palpable, a collective weight pressing down on her. Jake didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than her outburst, his dignity a stark contrast to her venom. The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours. Karen's face flushed, her eyes darting for an escape. She grabbed her coffee from Mia, who slid it across the counter without a word, and stormed toward the door. But the damage was done. Whispers followed her, soft, sharp, unforgiving. "She didn't know," the older woman murmured to her husband. "Doesn't excuse it," he replied. The teenager was already typing furiously, likely posting the scene to X, where it would spread like wildfire. Jake sat down at a corner table, his coffee untouched. He stared out the window, the frost on the glass mirroring the chill in his chest. He'd faced worse than Karen bullets, bombs, the screams of dying friends, but this hurt differently. It wasn't just her words. It was the reminder that the world he'd fought for didn't always see him. Mia approached, hesitant, and slid a fresh pastry onto his table. "On the house," she whispered. He nodded, managing a small smile, but the weight remained. Karen, outside, fumbled with her car keys, her hands shaking. For the first time, she felt the sting of her own words. She'd always justified her outbursts, demanding perfection was her right, wasn't it? But Jake's truth had cracked something in her. She didn't know his name, but his face, his calm, his pain, would haunt her. She drove off, the coffee shop fading in her rearview, but the memory clung like frost. Back inside, the room slowly thawed. The older couple resumed their conversation, quieter now. The teenager posted his video, captioned, "Karen just got wrecked by a vet. Justice." Mia wiped down the counter, stealing glances at Jake, who sipped his coffee in silence. The chalkboard's handwritten message seemed to pulse with the weight of what had happened. The town would talk about this for weeks. Karen's outburst, Jake's sacrifice, the collision of entitlement and resilience. But the story didn't end there. Karen's life unraveled in the days that followed. The teenager's post went viral, shared across X with hashtags like Karen vs. Vet and Know Their Story. Locals recognized her, and whispers turned to cold shoulders. She stopped going to Brood Awakening, then the grocery store, then anywhere she might be seen. Her complaints, once her armor, became her cage. She sat alone at night, replaying Jake's words, wrestling with a shame she couldn't name. Jake, meanwhile, didn't seek the spotlight. He didn't need to. The town rallied around him, not out of pity but respect. Strangers bought his coffee, left notes of thanks, shared stories of their own losses. He didn't want the attention, but it reminded him why he'd fought, because even in a world of Karens, there were MIAs, teenagers, and old couples who cared. Yet the encounter left a scar. He wondered if he'd ever feel at home again, if the sacrifices he'd made would ever truly be seen. The coffee shop returned to its rhythm, but the chalkboard's message stayed up for weeks, a quiet reminder of the day truth clashed with ignorance. Karen's outburst and Jake's response became a local legend, a cautionary tale about judgment and the stories we don't know. Some saw it as justice, others a tragedy. Everyone agreed it was a moment that changed them. What do you think? Was Karen's shame enough? Or should there have been more consequences for her words? Share your thoughts on where justice lies in a clash like this.